So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Napa Solano Audubon's October 10th meeting. This is our monthly meeting and speaker series, and we'd like to welcome all members, family, and friends. And we have a great audience tonight at Benicia Public Library. Tom, get a head count, would you? And we'll put a sign-up sheet over there for people to sign up so we know who came and we can contact you and pester you. So we're really excited tonight to have Corky Quirk from NorCal Bats, who will be our presenter. As always, we take about 10 minutes or so with announcements and some fun games that we hope you're going to enjoy. First announcement is our next speaker series is the second Thursday of the month. So our next speaker series is Thursday, November 14th. And we have Dr. Craig Fracour coming to speak about raptor advantage. And he's going to tell us all about the many adaptations that raptors have to make them successful hunters. So we're really looking forward to this. He is retired from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and has done a lot of work with hawks and raptors. So we're excited about that. Once again, it's Thursday, November 14th at 7 o'clock, and we'll be meeting next month at the Napa Valley Lutheran Church. As most of you know by now, with all my announcements, we have a brand new website. We've been working almost day and night on the website. We now have a full gallery of all the bird families that exist with great photos of most of them, and we urge you to check it out. We just added a new feature, which is you can submit your favorite bird photos, and we will post them in our members' photos folder. So check out our new website. It's located at napasolonobirds.org. If you go to our old website, there's a link right there that will take you to the new website. We've also been working on local birding hotspots in both Napa and Solano County. We have at least 10 hotspots up for both counties now, and they're places you can go and bird all on your own. It gives you a list of birds that you might see, and we're inviting you to send us your favorite locations that we can add to our list in case they aren't on our list yet. One of the articles in our newsletter for the fall was about lobbying to continue the funding for Farallon Island research. This is a really important matter. Point Blue Conservation Science has been doing research on the Farallons year-round, 365 days a year, for the last 50 years. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife has said that they're not sure they have the funds to continue funding it, which would actually leave the Farallon Islands without someone on them to protect them. So we're urging you to look at our letter in the newsletter and write a letter to the congressmen and department heads that the letter suggests in favor of the previous funding for the Farallon Island research. The good thing is in our digital version of the newsletter, which can be longer, there's actually the email addresses of very important people that you can email to, and there's also a template letter. So you can take that template, add a few personal things, sign it, and then that will help to perhaps lobby to continue the funding for the Farallon Islands. Let's make sure we're good here. Everyone can hear okay, I hope. Next, we're coming out with our winter newsletter in the next month or so. So if you don't mind receiving a email copy, a digital copy of the newsletter, and don't need a paper copy, please let us know. That helps us save paper and resources, and makes us be able to fund all of other projects. So now let's talk about a few field trips. Our weekly birding walks with Andrew Ford are discontinued this week because Andrew's getting married. So we figured we'd let him off. And if people got mixed up last week, he also tried to send out a message to cancel it, but I'm not sure that it went out successfully. We sometimes have had some problems with our email server in not sending out the messages reliably. But Andrew's getting married. He's very excited to do that. He's a phenomenal ornithologist, and he's worth waiting for. And he promises he'll be back the week after his wedding. We'll see. We'll keep you posted in our e-blasts. If you don't get information on field trips, if you go to our new website and sign up for activities and click the box for field trips, we'll add your name to that e-blast list. And in place of Andrew's Walk this weekend, we have a beginner's bird walk at American Canyon Wetlands. And that's going to be led by our very own Carol Boykin, who's here in our audience, as well as Karina Garcia. Karina helped me teach classes in Sassoon all day today. So if I appear tired, it's because I am. But both of those people visit the wetlands regularly, along with Tom Sliker, who's wandering in right now. And they're very knowledgeable about the birds of the wetlands. So come join them. It's on Sunday at American Canyon Wetlands starting at 9. It usually goes 2 to 3 hours, so it's over by noon. So it should be a lot of fun again this week. And essentially, they're scheduling these beginner bird walks about every other week. So they'll be at American Canyon Wetlands for a while, and eventually they'll shift over and do some at Benicia Community Park. Our monthly field trip, the next trip, is going to Mount Diablo's Mangini Ranch Educational Preserve on the slopes of Mount Diablo. This should be a really exciting trip. It's very difficult to get into the reserve, and we have permission, and we have a guide from the reserve. We had about 20 people signed up. I think a couple have dropped off, so if you'd like to do that, that trip will be on Sunday, October 27th from 8 till about 12:30. So there's still signups. You can go on the website, and there's a link to sign up to the form that allows you to sign up. Let's see who this is. I don't think so. So, yeah, I don't know, but I forgot to turn my phone off, so that was bad for me. Okay, so that's our next monthly field trip. Coming up in November is a field trip to Klamath, Klamath Falls area, and we'll be birding in the southern part of Oregon, the northern part of California, so look for information on that. Again, if you sign up for field trips, you will receive that information. One more thing, our t-shirt sales are still going on. There's a button on the website to purchase a t-shirt. We hope you will. We have these beautiful Kestrel t-shirts. I see at least one person, Carol, in the audience. No, but turn towards the camera here, Carol. Now you're online. Here comes Carol. There's her Kestrel t-shirt. So buy a t-shirt from Pam. She'll either mail it straight to you, or you can arrange to pick it up with Pam. So before we get to tonight's program, we're going to play our game, What's That Bird? We started this popular game last week. The kids were playing it today in school, and they were so excited they were jumping out of their seats. So here's the first bird you are going to need to try to identify. So remember, if you're in the digital audience, you can raise your hand by clicking on the heart. And in the heart, at the very bottom, there's a place where you raise your hand. You see my hand just popped up, or you can lower your hand. So if you know this bird, raise your hand if you know what bird is calling. And if you're here, raise your hand quietly, no blurting out the answers. There's a lot of people who like to blurt out the answers. So here's the very first bird that we're going to play tonight. Here we go. You should know this bird, I hope. Hopefully my sound will come out. I see a couple hands in the audience. Let me see if I see any hands in the participants. Oh, I see a hand from Nathan Tuma. Nathan, what bird is that, Nathan? So you'll have to unmute yourself in order
Maybe
to...
a white-crowned sparrow?
A white-crowned sparrow, and guess what? the white-crowned sparrows, according to Tom Sliker, who monitors them, have come in starting a little before the 1st of October, and they're now arriving in numbers. They're singing in my backyard saying, bring us our seed, bring us our seed. So here is the next bird that I have for you today. This is another migrant that will come in, but it won't be singing. So you have to know the chip note or the call note of this bird. Let's see if you know this one. Ooh, I see. There's a lot of people. Anyone in our audience here, since I called on the Zoom audience? Oh my gosh, we've got to get out more, you guys. Okay. All right, so I'm going to call on Andrea or Ian or Jenny, whoever. Make sure you unmute yourself before you give your answer.
Swainson's?
Oh, that was so close. It's a relative of the Swainson's thrush.
Hermit.
There you go, you got it.
Hermit.
Okay, so here's the next bird. It's a hermit thrush. Hermit thrush. It's a call note, and in the winter, that's about all they'll give. And they even come into our house in the city to forage in our garden. So they'll come in. I think Carol.
Audubon Society?
Her backyard too. So Carol should have known that call.
Well, no, you have to.
Here we go.
I don't think it's been announced
Okay,
yet.
so here we go. Here's our next one. See if you know this one. Okay, I see. Do you know what that bird is? Okay, let's stop it so we can. Yep.
Red-shouldered hawk.
He's right. He got it. Red shoulder. What's your name? Chris? Forest. Forest? Red-shouldered hawks live on the edge of the forest usually. Good job. That's awesome. One of our young birders knows that bird. You've had your hand up? Okay, you got to wiggle it a little bit. Okay, here we go. So here's our next bird. Okay, let's see if I can fool Forrest. Okay, so here we go. This is another bird. I'm hoping you will know. We have a lot of people in our audience tonight, and both on Zoom and in the audience. So here it is. Let's do this one. Oh, that might be too hard. I'll give you the call, the song.
Oh, hey, he wants to answer it.
Tom might know, but we're not going to call on him. Is there anyone else in the audience on Zoom with their hand raised besides Andrea, Ian, and Jenny? Oh, but Nathan Thuma, he's kind of an expert, so we're not going to call on him. All right. Forrest, what do you think?
Hear that, honey?
Oh, okay. So let's ask for help from Nathan. Nathan, what do you think?
That sounded like a golden crown sparrow.
A golden crowned sparrow. So the cousin to the white crown. And they say, if you're going to personify its call, it says, poor, poor me. All right. All right. A couple more calls and then we'll turn the program over. Oh, here's a bird that I hear regularly at my house. And it's really unexpected. Whoops. Here it is. So let's see if you know this one. So I haven't called in the people way in the back. What do you think?
I think that's a white-tailed peck.
Oh, that's close, but not quite. Let's hear it again. Sounds like a screech, sort of, doesn't it? What do you think over here? This is the barn owl, okay? Okay, and barn owls hunt at night. They love Alston Park near our house, and they'll come out and wherever they're roosting, and they fly right over our house. So one last bird. This is for the young kids. Okay, let's see if they know it. Let's see. Everyone has heard this in the yard, I'll bet. What is it? Oh, it sounds like an owl, doesn't it? Forrest.
Morning dove.
This is the mourning dove. So mourning dove is our last call of the day. That's right. That's right. It does sound like an owl, so it's very reasonable that you got tricked by that one. So thank you, audience members, for your participation. And I would like to introduce tonight's speaker. Her name is Corky Quirk, and she is founder of the NorCal Bats organization in the Sacramento area. Bats play such an important role in the ecosystem as major consumers of nocturnal insects. I hope we're going to learn how many nocturnal insects these little bats eat every night, but we'll find out from Corky. They have many adaptations to fly and navigate in the night sky, including, I'm sure you've heard of, echolocation. Meet the fastest mammal on Earth, and Corky will be sharing that with us, and our state flying mammal. Mary Jean Quirk, or Corky, besides founding that, has been working with nature programs, fairs, and other community events throughout our region for many years. Corky has been working intensively with native bats since 2004 and has educated thousands of people of the important role they play in our ecosystems. She works with injured and orphaned bats, returning them to the wild, and keeps a captive colony of non-releasable bats for use in education. So without further ado, I will introduce Corky Quirk.
All right. Let's see.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we got the sound accurate.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Corky. I'm with Northern California Bats, and this is the first time I've done the equivalent of Zoom in the room. So spotlight me up. There we go. And I'm going to be sharing with you about bats. Let me bring up my screen here. And I don't know why I end up with all these weird little things, but hide. Escape. No, I don't want to. There. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to be sharing with you about bats, and I have brought with me 3 of our local native species. So these are 3 of the kinds of bats that you could see flying around, hunting the bugs. That's what our bats do. You have wings. Maybe
What
you
I'm
can
getting
fly.
for Halloween.
There you go.
Are
we getting an echo?
Itchy, so I didn't wear it.
Are we
Yep.
getting?
No.
Okay.
Oh, maybe. From when I talk, I guess. I have my sound turned off.
So turn off your sound and mute yourself. You have to do both. So you have to turn your volume all the way down. You have to mute on
All right,
Zoom.
try that.
You're not muted on Zoom, I don't think.
Oh, on Zoom. Oh, I see. Now I got it.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Hey.
There we go. All right. So with me, I have, like I said, 3 of our local native species. I have 2 big brown bats. This is kind of weird. I can't see myself. 2 free-tailed bats and 2 pallid bats. These bats are real. They're alive. They are full-grown adult bats, and they eat insects. I should be screen sharing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. Okay, good.
Yep, see, you're on them.
There we go. Okay. I want to take out one of the big brown bats so that I can show her to you a little bit. And then I have videos and pictures about bats. And then I'm going to use this little web camera to project one of each of those three up onto the screen so that you can see some of the details about each species. Because, you know, a bat is not a bat is not a bat, just like a bird is not a bird, right? But because they fly at night, we don't see them very well, and people often don't realize how many different kinds of bats we have around here, each doing something a little bit different. So big brown bat. Big brown bat, again, is one of our local native species. Now, these bats are alive. They are full-grown adult bats. They all came into wildlife rescue with injuries that we could not repair. So these are non-releasable. They're under permits with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the USDA to be used for education. And, oops. Okay. Big brown bat. Friends, see the bat? There. Okay. So big, well, I know, she doesn't look very big, does she? But she's a lot bigger than the little brown bat. Big brown bats weigh around 18 grams, and a little brown bat's going to be closer to 7. They're brown and black in color. Often color is camouflage. So this bat is going to blend in with wood. We'll see them under the bark of trees or in dead trees, palm trees, under the eaves of people's houses, sometimes in bridges. They also, yeah, I mean, they're pretty flexible as a species. They are a true North American bat. So they're actually found all over the United States. They're in parts of Canada and parts of Mexico. And she has a rather large wing. So she would look a lot larger if she was out
Put it
flying.
in your computer camera too there.
Maybe they could see me, maybe not. All right. So, whoop, she's like, I am done with that. Thank you very much. She would be about the size of this toy if she was flying. And big brown bats like a variety of insects, but beetles are big on their menu. So cucumber beetles, of course, the cucumbers, pumpkin, watermelon, and bark beetles eat our trees. So pretty important bats, yes. So the question was, is it only flying beetles or can they do other? They will glean or pick insects off of plants and they will catch them in the air. There are a variety of birds that can do that, aren't there? Yeah, and there's some birds that can catch insects in the air. All right. So what do you think? Related to the mice? Kind of look like little mice, don't they? How about us? We're mammals, and so are mice. As being a mammal, I don't really think of myself as a very close cousin to a rodent, and neither are the bats. So if we look at how animals are related to each other, get the little, there it is. There we go. So coming up the trunk of this tree, this is by DNA, right? So you come up the trunk, you come over to the left, and you find the bat. Coming up that trunk and going over to the right, you find the rodents, like the rat. Interestingly to me, if you stay on this branch with the rats, go a little farther, you find us, which means by DNA, we are closer to the rodents than the bats are to the rodents. They're not little flying rats or flying mice. They are closer to the dogs and cats. So I like to call them itty bitty flying kitties. Yes.
Is that true of both old and new world bats?
Yes. So the question was, is that true of both Old World and New World bats? There was a time period, and we still kind of hear it floating out there, but the evolutionary biologists don't tie with it, that maybe the fruit bats evolved coevolutionarily, and were closer to the primates. But other than the ocular design, it looks like fruit bats actually did break off from the insect-eating bats. They are mammals, and as mammals, they have marrow in their bones. They do not have hollow bones like birds do, which means they have to have other adaptations to deal with weight, because weight is a problem for flight. And they are the mammals that fly. All mammals that fly are called bats. And they fly with the same bones we have in our arm and our hand. So if we compare ourselves, are you able to get the chat down?
I can't. I don't think.
There. Okay, I just wanted to find out if
It's not out there. It doesn't cover up.
yeah, but it covers me.
Yeah.
So when I turn around and look to see what I'm doing,
Yeah, all right.
kind of weird. Usually I have a little like square on my own screen and it didn't show up. Anyway, they fly with their hands. So if you look at this bat, this is its upper arm, right? And the forearm, right? Wrist, elbow, thumb, and fingers. So they have 1, 2 right next to each other, and the ring finger and the pinky with skin from the tip of the pinky down to the ankle. They are in the order Chiroptera, and in Greek that means hand wing. And when they fly, they do more of a butterfly stroke. So again, they are not birds. So they don't have those strong chest muscles like birds do. They're using shoulder muscles. So it's a swimming kind of action. And they have knuckles, just like we do, on their fingers. So again, the shape of that wing is different than the bone structure of a bird. You can see all that skin from the pinky down to the ankle. This is a flying fox from the continent of Africa. Now, one of our most common myths is that bats are blind. Bats are not blind. They have eyes and they see with their eyes. Their vision is fine, but of course they are hunting when it's dark. And that's when their sonar becomes very important. Now, the outliers are the fruit bats. Fruit bats see in full color. They see into the ultraviolet like some of the birds do. And they can see things, colors that we cannot. But most bats, they're seeing in shades of black, white, maybe some greens, but not full color like us. And they're hunting when it's dark. And so that's where their sonar or their echolocation becomes important. And that is sound. Bing, bing, bing. And when that sound returns, they know something is close. And then they go faster. Bing, 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 bing. And then right before they decide if they want to eat it or not, they go very fast. Bing, 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 bing. So we're going to listen to this little California myotis. And what I want you to notice is it starts out slow, gets very fast, so fast our ears can't separate the sound, and then it drops back to the search mode. That speed in the middle is called the feeding buzz. But we can't hear those sounds. They are way out of the human hearing range. And that's a little weird to think about. So I have this little app on my phone, and I don't know if the speaker will pick it up. But I want to try it. Sorry, guys at home. If you can't hear it, bear with us. I'm going to play a tone. It's going to sound like, eep. If you can hear it, I want you to raise your hand. when the sound stops, I want you to put your hand back down. That was 5 kilohertz. That's how high that was. Lost a few people. That was 10. And that's not uncommon. Some, depending on our age, high frequency sound, right? So that was 10. Right? No, there's a couple younger adults in the back. Mhm. Pretty much anybody over the age of 40 is out at 15. Some of our younger adults may still hear 15 kilohertz. That was 17. And at 17, usually it's just our teens and our children that can still hear 17. No? Yeah, you don't hear it. You hear it? I don't think so. Is it on or off? It's off. Now it's on. Now it's off. Don't bother. Yeah. At 19, it gets iffy for the kids. At 19, some children can hear it. Others, most can't. So in order, bats echolocate higher than that. So in order to hear bat echolocation, we use machines like this. It's called a bat detector. And what it does is it picks up high frequency sound, reduces it, and brings it into our hearing range. So I'm going to turn on my bat detector, and 22, which nobody heard, becomes 2.2, and we can hear it. Yeah. These bats over here echolocate around 30 kilohertz. Humans do not hear 30 kilohertz, but dogs and cats can. This little one up here, the California myotis, it echolocates around 50 kilohertz. A lot of dogs don't hear that. Most of the cats still do. And then there's other bats that echolocate even higher than that, out of the range of even the dogs and cats, but some of the moth can hear that, right? And those moth get away. So in our next little video, you're going to see a bat come into the screen. You're going to see a moth come up from the bottom. And I want you to decide if the bat catches the moth or if the moth goes into the tree. And you'll hear echolocation because a bat detector was used. There's the bat. There's the moth. It didn't. No. Yeah, the bat went. The moth went in the tree. Watch again. It went in the tree. What I don't know is if the bat missed or changed its mind. It got very close. And once it gets close with that echolocation, it can tell what kind of moth it is. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't like that flavor. Let's see what the next one does. Yeah, so if you don't call out, you might hear the echolocation feeding buzz. So listen to the end this time, okay? All right. So right over water, a lot of bugs around the water, and the mouth open for echolocation. Now, around the world, there's more than 1,400 different species of bat. And that's pretty impressive when you consider there's only around 6,400 kinds of mammals in the world. So this shows us all the different mammals divided by their order or large grouping. And a lot of that shows up in the teeth. So apparently it's a really good adaptation to have your 2 front teeth grow all your life, because that's the rodents and there's a lot of them. But the next big group are the mammals that can fly, right? The bats. At 1,400, and actually it's 82 now, I need to update my slide, species of bat worldwide. We have 47 species in the United States, 26 in California, and 17 in the northern part of the state, with at least a dozen of those that are going to be in the Napa-Solano area, depending on the time of year. Bats live on every continent except Antarctica. It's too cold there. But everywhere that there are bugs, there are going to be bats eating those insects. All over the world, bats eat bugs. And then when you get closer to the tropical areas, then you see some eating insects, others eating fruit, or others taking nectar and pollinating, others that are eating meat. There's fishing bats and frog eating bats and the vampire bats. But all of those are tropical, right? Our bats and most bats worldwide eat insects and sometimes other invertebrates. Invertebrates, there they go. Yeah, centipede. And here is one way they can catch a moth in flight. You can hear slow motion echolocation, but watch the body. Watch how this bat, yeah, grabs with that hand wing, drops it into that tail membrane, and then rolls up into a ball. And then eats it. In flight. Oh, wait, that'll be the next one. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Just like you. Full backflip. And yeah, he dropped it, but you know, it still was impressive flight. And then this is a bat from Europe that eats spiders.
Oh,
Yeah. So the first two videos in this photo were taken at the University of Colorado, where they're studying how bats capture insects. And in this case, they were trying to figure out how the tiger moth gets away, because it's a type of moth that bats have a hard time catching. But what I really like is how well we can see the tail and the legs and the tail membrane. And I like to call that the catcher's mitt. And what they found was the tiger moth produced sound back at the bat and jam echolocation. Yep. Yeah. Now, Mexican free-tailed bats are our most common species. They are a native bat, and they eat a lot of moth and other crop pests, and they eat mosquitoes. But they're so important for agriculture. They're saving farmers billions of dollars annually across the United States by consuming crop pests, reducing crop loss, and reducing insecticide use. They're eating a variety of the insects that are a problem for us, the things that eat our food and give the farmers a problem. Now, we have a variety of species though, so I want to run through some of our local types of bats. The myotis here are little. So the California bat and the little brown bat, both are tiny. Tiny bats eat tiny insects. So these guys are eating things like the moth, little moths, but they're also eating more of the mosquitoes and midge and gnats.
what would their wingspan be?
The myotis wingspans, well, these are two different bats. So the California myotis, that animal weighs 3 grams. Yeah, where the little brown bat weighs closer to 7 or 8 grams. The California myotis is close to about a 6-7 inch wingspan. The little brown bat's going to be closer to about 10 inches. Yeah. Big brown bat, we met the big brown bat at the beginning, and you can see it's a true North American species and does often like wood. They don't chew on wood. They're not rodents. They like to eat the insects that like to be around wood. So the beetles, the termites, things like that. They'll eat moth, they'll eat mosquito too. Yeah. Pallid bat. Pallid bat is a big bat for us. And they eat ground invertebrates, including the scorpion. Yeah. And they just became our state bat. Yeah. So we have a new state symbol, the pallid bat, golden bat for the Golden State. Mexican free-tailed bat, again, very common species locally. They tend to live in very large colonies. This top photo over here, that's Bracken Cave outside of San Antonio, Texas, with the largest colony of any single mammal species in the world, an estimated 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats in that one cave in the summer. This is a roofing tile. Yeah, so sometimes they do get in a little bit of trouble with us.
Is it called free-tailed because the membrane is separated differently?
Yeah, I'll show that when I get them to the camera. You'll be able to see it more clearly. And they are absolutely native to here. And you may notice that the ones here in California, we don't actually think they leave the state, where the ones that are closer to the border, at least portions of those colonies do migrate between the two countries. I hang out at the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area. That's my day job. But underneath that bridge are thousands of these little Mexican free-tailed bats. And they live in the expansion joints of the bridge. And they get themselves in really nice and tight and snug. And yeah, they come out and hunt right over the wetlands there. Maybe some of you have birded that wildlife area. Few others. Canyon bats are the smallest bat in North America, or now certainly in the United States. I think in all of North America. Teeny tiny bat. When people see them, they assume they're babies. And then the Townsend's big-eared bat is a bat that it doesn't do well around us. So like when the Mexican free-tailed bats, which they're all canyons, they weigh just under 3 grams. Teeny, almost as small as the bumblebee bat, which is the smallest bat in the world. About the size of the end of my thumb. Yeah, they're tiny, which is why people think they're babies, right? So the Townsend's big-eared bat, it just doesn't do well around humans. So when we build, they either leave or have little heart attacks and die. Yeah, they just don't do well around us. So if you go to places like Pinnacles National Monument and you're like, why are the caves closed so much? It's to protect this particular species. Biggest and smallest in the United States. Our biggest bat is the mastiff bat. They live in California. They tend to like large rock outcroppings. So think Sutter Buttes, Yosemite, Castle Crags, places like that. And they are a free-tailed bat. So you can see the tail, right, of the free-tailed bat. They look a lot like these little Mexican free-tailed bats. But these girls here weigh around 10 grams. And at the time of that photo, he was 80. Yeah. Our Mexican free-tailed bats have about a 1-foot wingspan. And the Mastiff has about a 2-foot wingspan. Yeah. And then the canyon bat. She is about the size of his head. Yeah.
Oh, right, next to it.
One of our, personally, I think, maybe I'm just partial because it has red hair. One of the bats that I think is our most beautiful is the Western red bat. They do not hide. So we think of bats as being hiding in crevices or bridges or whatever, caves. These guys, they hang like a peach. They like the deciduous trees. That particular one is in an oak tree. And they look like a dead leaf. The hoary bat is another one of our tree species. Hoary bats migrate through here spring and fall. There's a lot of research going on right now about this particular species because they are being hit very hard by the wind turbines. And so we want to know what can be done, right, to protect this bat. And because these two bats hang out in the open, this guy like a pine cone in a redwood or a pine tree, the other like a piece of fruit, they get knocked out of the tree sometimes by the birds. Jays and crows in particular, and they land on the ground. And then I get these little videos and phone calls from people. What is wrong with this bat? Why is it laying on its back and its wings are up? And it hisses.
Don't touch it.
Exactly. That's defense. That's normal. People are like, oh my God, it must be sick with rabies. No, actually, that's a very healthy bat. So the direction was take a very long stick or a little broom, flip it over, and they jump up from the ground and leave. And the only reason I advise people to do that is because of house cats. If there are no cats, that bat will get its brain together, it'll flip itself over and go. But unfortunately, usually if people are seeing them, they're in a neighborhood. And there's just too many cats around for, yeah. So how much are they eating? So Mexican free-tailed bats in the summertime are eating about the equivalent of their own weight in insects nightly. So if they weigh 10 grams, they eat 10 grams worth of moth. Just be patient. We'll be doing this math for a sec. All right, so moths don't weigh very much. So that means that one bat in one night is eating somewhere between 50 and 100 moth. If she's eating mosquitoes, she's eating even more. A male is going to eat about half as much in the summer than a nursing mom. Nursing moms are very hungry. But of course, not all those moths were going to lay eggs. So let's say 20 of them. 20 of the moths were going to lay eggs. Each moth can lay around 500 eggs. So that means, yeah, that's a lot, right? That means that one bat in one night is saving the farmer from around 10,000 moth eggs. And she doesn't live alone. Yeah. So I chose 20 because if there's 20 moth in the crop, the farmer may decide insecticides are needed because the crop loss will become too much, right? So and they're expensive. Insecticides are pricey. Not only are they unhealthy for us, but they're expensive, especially if they have to fly them on, right? And so the bridge there, the Yolo Causeway, there's a farmer right there. He grows 2,000 acres of rice. If he had to spray that rice with insecticides, it could cost him around $200,000 annually. But he doesn't. He says, yeah, there's insects out there, but not enough to cause him problems. And we say, plant your to 250,000 bats. The crop pest for the crop pest for rice is an insect called the armyworm, and the adult is a moth. Yeah. Now, mom has one baby at a time, not necessarily every year. Kind of like us. Once in a while, there's twins on some of the species, but mostly one. But that baby is a third of mom's weight at birth. Yeah, that's like us giving birth to kindergartners. Yeah, so mom's hungry. She nurses her pup. And then at about 5 to 6 weeks of age, that young bat is going to become as big as mom solely on mother's milk. And then they have to learn to fly and they have to learn to hunt. And that's really hard. A lot of the young wild animals don't survive that first year. And a lot of it has to do with winter. If they don't build up the fat to make it through the winter when there's less food available, or if they're a hibernating species, they're just not going to make it, right? They also, of course, have to learn to stay away from predators and out of other trouble. And yes, that is a frog. But bats also drink from backyard swimming pools. They can swim. If they fall into a pond or a creek, they swim to the side, they get out. They can't climb the tiles of a backyard pool. And so this little blue device in there, that's called a frog log. It's a wildlife ramp. So that when wildlife fall in, they swim the perimeter, they climb up on the frog log, they get themselves back out. I do rescue. I am taking in bats that people find on the ground. For the most part, bats don't belong on the ground. They might be hurt, they might be sick. They could be a baby in the summertime. If you don't handle it, it won't hurt you. If you don't touch it, it won't bite you or attack you. Bats are not aggressive. And if you don't touch it, even if the animal is sick, there's no disease you're going to get by looking at it. And there's nothing in their urine or guano here in California. But if you pick it up, it will be scared and it may bite, right? And if the animal is sick, that's how disease is spread. So number one, don't, right? Don't handle wild animals. If you want to get help, contain it and then contact your wildlife rescue. You can use gloves that are good enough for working with roses. I get a lot of bats in empty Starbucks cups. You know, you put the cup down, use the lid, shove them together, trap, right? And then we'll try to figure out how to get help for the bat. Closest here is going to be Napa, right? Napa Wildlife. Mhm. And the concern, of course, is the possibility of the virus rabies. Most bats are not sick with rabies. If they can hunt, fly, roost high, do what they're supposed to do, it's extremely rare. But a bat on the ground might be sick. Worldwide, dogs are the biggest issue for passing rabies on to humans. But in the United States, we vaccinate our pets. So we have a pretty good handle on canine rabies. We're worried about feral cats with no shots. Bat, skunk, and fox as being the most likely to be near people when the animal is sick. And for a bat, it's the bat on the ground. Bat on the ground, 1 in 10 is likely sick with rabies. That means 90% aren't, and those are the ones we're hoping to be able to get back into the wild. But 10%, right? I mean, rabies is a virus that kills mammals, and we're mammals, right? But rabies is passed through saliva. If you never handle the animal bare skinned, you're not exposing yourself, even if the animal is sick. So be smart, keep yourself safe. Don't handle wild mammals. We worry about what wildlife might pass to us, but we need to keep in mind what we pass to them. And in the case of this fungus from Eurasia, the bats in North America are being devastated. And it is a fungus. Probably came over on someone's hiking boots or something like that. First was identified in New York State, and every year it's been spreading. Bats move it as they migrate, and people move it as we go in and out of their caves. When it gets into caves with the small hibernating bats, 50 to 99% die. We are losing our bats by the millions across the United States. And it's a huge problem. You can see this part of the United States where it's been the longest. Right? There was a study that came out almost a month ago now. Because of the way it moved, research was able to happen that we never would have been able to do before. There are species that have lost 99% of their population in 20 years. We expect the northern long-eared bat to go extinct probably in the next 5 to 10 years. That was an extremely common bat. The little brown bat has lost 90% of its population. We have little brown bats here. So they're doing the study, and what they're finding is where the bats are crashing, the insecticide percentage is going up by 30%. When the insecticides go up by 30%, the human infant mortality rate goes up 8%. Insecticides are not good for us. And the test scores of the children drop. That's a problem, right? So we need to figure out how to protect our bats. So California looks a little bit different than most of the other states. These open circles mean the DNA of the fungus has been found in those counties, but not causing issues for the bat. Humboldt County has a solid circle, and that means that that actually was a positive on a bat. And so we're concerned that it's becoming a bigger issue, but so far we haven't seen bats succumbing. We don't know what that means. It could be a matter of time. It could be our climate is different. We're a huge agricultural state. We need these bats, right? So best thing we can do, stay out of caves. And if we do go into caves, we need to clean our shoes and clothes before we go in and after we come out. There's a lot of great research going on. There's no silver bullet at this point. So we also, if we like birds, bats, reptiles, I mean, all kinds of things, eat insects, right? Or if you like to eat food. I mean, we're losing our pollinators, we're losing our decomposers. A lot of that's insecticide use, but even more flat out habitat loss. Yeah. So what can we do? Well, bat houses are a great option for bats. When, forest fires, a big deal in California. Bats live in a lot of those dead trees. And so when the fires go through, they need places. Bat houses are these flat boxes that when you look up, this is looking straight into it, you can see there's separate chambers. They're basically two pieces of plywood with a 1x separator stacked, giving the roosting locations. And this is one on a freestanding pole. There was experimentation to figure out if the bats cared about color. They didn't care about color. They did care about placement. High, east facing, and not in a tree. They like morning sun, but west is too hot.
Yeah.
Sun rises in the east. Right. It's just too hot in the afternoon. This is Beale Air Force Base. This is an osprey nest at the top of the pole. And then these are bat houses placed on that same pole. And then, if you're like, why is there that weird net underneath the bat house? Bat houses can get too hot in our area. And so that is called a pup catcher. When the bat house gets too hot, baby bats come out to cool off. And if they lose their footing, if they fall to the ground, they can't get back. They're too big for mom to lift. Pup catcher, baby bat hits the pup catcher, just crawls itself right back up inside. Few other things we can do when we plant native plants, especially native plants that bloom at night, supporting the native insect population. We can also make choices about insecticide use in our own yards and homes. We also can make choices about what we buy. So when we support organic farmers, we're supporting the people who are not using insecticides in their fields. Dead trees, ponds, things of that sort, and the land trusts and the farmers that have hedgerows, all of that is protecting habitat or providing habitat for everything, right? And then the birds and bats both have issues with the loss of the night sky, the dark sky. So we can choose things like lights that are not white. We can choose motion lights, so they're off except when we need them. We can encourage our business owners and our cities to have downward facing hoods on the lights, so we light up what we need, but we're not lighting up the whole sky. Hang on, okay? And then of course cats, and talking to the choir, cats eat birds too, right? Yeah, so I want to introduce you to the bats. I see a hand here. So I'm going to, let's see, I need to figure out how to bring down my screen, stop share. And I'm going to change my camera. And while I go and get the bat, I'll try to answer your question there.
Bats was moving and it was eating.
Really? I didn't hear it talking, but they move. They notice us. You heard it?
I heard.
I believe you. At the end. Okay. So
if you stop sharing, will it still be hearing you? Yeah, it should be. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
You said.
Yeah, we can still hear.
They leave the causeway, where do they go then?
So the question was, if they don't migrate, but they leave the causeway, where do they go? Well, that's a great question, and we don't know. What I said was they don't migrate to Mexico. I didn't say they don't migrate. But there's bats in that bridge year round. You got the best seat in the house. All right, let me see if I can get it to focus better. So she's going to vibrate. She's going to shake. And that's normal. I need you to stay seated. Thank you. What was I thinking? Vibrating, yes, thank you. She's, when a bat rests, it slows down its heart, it slows its blood pressure, it slows its pulse. When it's time to rouse or wake up, they shake. So it's not fear or stress, it's tired. And yeah, you wouldn't think she'd be tired, but she actually was working earlier in the day today too. So she's probably like, wait, I thought I'd like get to sleep in. Uh-huh, uh-huh. All right, I want to share with you some of the adaptations about this bat that help it to be fast. Mexican free-tailed bats are super fast little bats. And part of that has to do with the ears. So you can see the round ears, and they come together and make a V. So you can see how those ears kind of touch right in the center of her forehead. That's about aerodynamics, moving the air just the right way. You may also notice, although it's a little subtle, I don't know if I can get the lighting a little different. Can you see the bumps on the edges of her ears? Yeah, those are for turning and steering. I find adaptations fascinating. She has little wrinkly lips. She can open her mouth extra wide, so she is likely to just capture an insect in her mouth like a swallow would do. Although she can use her tail membrane if she chooses, but she's fast enough, she often is just going to catch them. They have short fur. Longer fur would slow them down. Shorter fur, less drag, faster flight. Thumb. And you can see there's a little nail on the end of her thumb. Thumbs are for climbing. So she has very sharp nails that she can climb around on the walls of a cave. These are historically cave species, but they also can climb around in cement. So up in the expansion joints of the causeway, that's just cement. They can climb just about anything. It's amazing what they can hold on to. So that's her thumb. That's the rest of her arm. She has an elbow, wrist, forearm, and the forearm has the radius and ulna just like us, just tiny. And then her finger bones are tucked up against her forearm. Our bats don't wrap their wings around their body like the fruit bats do. Our bats keep them tucked up nice and snug like an umbrella until it's time to stretch them out to fly. And then they have a long, narrow wing. Let's see if she'll let me show you her wing. So long and narrow is a sign of speed, right? Peregrine falcon, swift, swallow, jet planes.
Predators.
Mexican free-tailed bat. And the tail of the free tail, F-R-E-E, free tail. And there it is. Now, remember the catcher's mitt, right? The big tail membrane. Free-tailed bats have that skin. It's there, but they have control over it. So they can stretch it up and up the tail if they want to, or tuck it back down and get it out of the way so there's no big parachute dragging behind them, slowing them down. Mm-hmm. Whiskers are for feeling. She can feel where she's going when she's backing up into a crack or a crevice. She can also feel subtle changes in the way air is moving while she's flying and use that for speed. Coming back to her face, I want to show you her teeth. Let me see your teeth. Notice this is not the mouth of a rodent. Rodents have two front teeth that keep growing. This is a carnivore mouth. This bat has fangs. Canines, right? Yep. Very much like the mouth of a cat. Interestingly, vampire bats have sharper front teeth, not the fangs in the same way. Yeah. All those toys out there that say they're vampires and put fangs on them. Yeah. Maybe they're from Transylvania. There's no vampire bats in Transylvania. All right. Moth and mosquito are the insects of choice, although they will eat other insects too. But their true claim to fame is speed. Mexican free-tailed bat is the fastest mammal on Earth, beating the cheetah by a lot. Cheetahs top out around 70 miles an hour. Mexican free-tailed bats have been clocked up to just under 100. And we have a very hard time keeping up with them. So we don't even know, maybe they go faster. They don't know for sure. The tracking is done by putting little teeny trackers on the bats and then following them in airplanes as they come out of their caves. And then the bat turns and the airplane can't. Someday we'll know. Oh, that's echolocation. I don't know. It probably doesn't pick up on that. So that up, down is her checking out the camera. She has a larynx, so the sound comes just like us, vocal cords. They have two different types of vocalizations. They have echolocation, which are pulses, and they also have communication. And there's some recent studies trying to figure out how much of it is actual communication. And they have learned that baby bats babble before they talk, and mother bats baby talk. So not so different from us, right? Yeah. Although they are in a different branch. Okay. Big brown. I didn't hear you.
Why was it not returned to the wild?
She was caught by a house cat, and the wing that I did not show had some significant damage that we were not able to repair. 4 out of 6 of these were caught by house cats. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope everyone really got the message. Keeping cats indoors is definitely the way to go. We believe they might be responsible for killing as many as 1 billion birds a year.
Oh,
So, yeah,
yeah. House cats are lovely pets, but they're hunters. They're not native to this continent, and they just do so much destruction. All right, big brown bat. Yeah, she's big, she's brown, she's a bat. A lot bigger than the little brown bat, much furrier, right? The ears do not touch. They're taller and pointier. This bat hunts in a different way. So Mexican free-tailed bats are fast, distance, out in open fields. Mexican big brown bats, they can turn corners, they can cut, and they can hunt around the branches of the trees. They have a much wider wing. Yep. Wider top to bottom. So that ratio helps them to maneuver amongst the branches of the trees. They can glean or they can catch insects in the air. They have a big tail membrane, but no free tail. They're not a free-tailed bat. They don't have the long hairs either, like the Mexican free-tails do. There's interesting studies going on about those hairs to find out really what that's all about on the free-tails.
So you might compare this to falcons and accipiters. So accipiters zip amongst the trees, their wings are wider than a falcon. Falcon have really narrow wings, so they can fly really fast.
Yes. Although straight level powered flight, the bat would win. But if a peregrine falcon goes into a stoop, nothing beats that falcon, right? So the peregrine falcon is one of the predators to the Mexican free-tailed bat. Yeah. Cooper's hawks also can catch them. Kestrels can catch them, but that's a falcon again, right? And So the big brown bat eats a lot of beetle. I'm going to see if she'll take a little water. Sometimes she will. You take some water? Yep. And then I'm going to offer her a mealworm. And the mealworm is the caterpillar of a beetle. So that's pretty good stuff. Yeah, I understand. This individual was born in captivity to a mother that was injured by a cat. And I wonder if the stress of being in captivity or the stress of being recovered from a predator, this particular bat's eyes never opened. And so she's blind, and you can't be a bat and live in the wild. They can't navigate. She can use echolocation, so she can get around in her cage, but she can't see distance. And if you think about bats flying, I mean, she might go 40 miles an hour. She needs to see where she's going. Sound doesn't go that far. Yeah. All right. Last one up is going to be the pallid bat. And the pallid bat is our state bat. Again, golden bat for the Golden State. The pallid bat is found all over California. So they are a species that lives here in our grasslands. They also are found in forests and deserts. So they're pretty broad spread. That said, they are a species of concern in the state due to population drop. Habitat loss is the big deal for them. Look at those ears, right? Yeah. So pallid bats have these really big ears, and animals with big ears, of course, hear well. Pallid bats hear well enough that they often don't bother with echolocation. They can echolocate, but that's a lot of energy. It's like screaming, right? And so these guys can just passively listen. They are hunting for insects and other invertebrates that live on the ground. So they fly low, they fly slow, they listen, and then they land and leap on the critter, grab it. Sometimes they sit right there and eat it. Other times they jump up with it in their mouth, carry it someplace higher. They do have a thing for stucco. So it's not uncommon for me to get a call from people with stucco buildings. I got this bat, and it lives in the corner over my front door, and there's all these bug parts on the porch. That would be a pallid bat. They like potato bugs. This is a toy potato bug. Yeah. Potato bugs are they're kind of weird looking. Yeah, but they're a decomposer, so they're important, and they're food for a variety of other critters out there. You used to see more potato bugs around. I don't feel like I see them as often as I used to. Probably insecticides or habitat loss, not sure which. Pallid bats have a very big, broad wing. They also have larger eyes, so they hear well, they see well. They're not quick, but they don't need to be. They can also eat scorpion. Did I say that? I might have said that already. Big tail membrane, no free tail, not a free-tailed bat. Now, hunting on the ground is a little dangerous because they have to deal with more predators. So if they get mad or scared, they can put out a mild skunky odor. And if you smell bad, maybe some of the predators won't eat you. It's not perfect, but it's helpful. Helps with some of them. Bats have a variety of problems. Certainly habitat loss, white nose syndrome, insecticides, but another is just fear. And we tend to be afraid of what we don't understand or haven't learned about. And so I'm hoping that not only will you appreciate the bats, but that you will also share with others about why bats are important and how we can live amongst wildlife and keep ourselves safe at the same time, but also appreciate what we have around us. So thank you. Thank you for learning about bats tonight. So I'm happy to answer some questions if we have time.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have any questions out there? Yes.
That's flying over rice fields and so on. Is there a concern about that one?
Is there a concern about the bat guano? No, it's just the opposite. The farmer there said they don't poop enough. Bat guano is used as fertilizer. It's very high in nitrogen. And so it's quite helpful for farmers. And in some parts of the world, the guano is harvested and used substantially. And if you ever buy a high-end potting soil or fertilizer for your yard, you're likely to see bat guano in there, in the ingredients. Mhm. Yes. Yes. How much do they weigh? Not much. So the bats are weighing, well, it depends on the kind of bat. They'll weigh anywhere from 3 grams, which is like a dime, up to the Pallid is our heaviest that I have here. And it weighs about 30 grams, which is about an ounce. Big brown bats weigh about 18 grams, so about half as much as the Pallid. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, so flying squirrels, though, are rodents, and they actually glide rather than true flight. Yeah, so we think that bats are more closely related as far as small mammals to maybe the hedgehogs and shrews, the insectivores, rather than to the rodents like the squirrels. Huh? Yeah. Yes.
Do any bats hunt cooperatively?
Do any bats hunt cooperatively? I don't know of any, certainly there are none in California that do. There could be some worldwide that do, that I'm not aware of. I mean, there's almost 1,500 kinds. But there's some that go to the opposite. So if you and I are both bats and you're the bug and we're both aiming for you, I might turn and scream at you to mess up your echolocation so I can get you. Yeah, then you get, yeah. On the other hand, vampire bats will feed each other. They're one of the few mammal species in the world where an adult will feed a non-related adult who isn't successful. They also are one of the few mammal species in the world that will readily adopt an orphan that's not related. We do those things, but most mammals don't. Yes. No. Yeah, I don't know where that rumor would have come from that they were going to close off the causeway to the bats. I did hear that at one point from an individual who also says that they're not native. So obviously an individual who doesn't know much about bats that was trying to, and I contacted Caltrans and the biologist and said, why am I hearing this? And she said, I don't have a clue why you're hearing these things, because if any, they actually had to do EIRs to not bother the bats during baby season. So it's just the opposite, right? They can bother them during non-baby season. And there's a lot of, if you've driven that bridge anytime in the last year, the construction on there is tremendous. And it is bothersome to the bats, and the bats are shifting on the bridge, but they don't seem to be leaving the bridge. And that's what we normally see in Mexican free-tailed bats in bridges. There's some species that would be afraid and might leave, but free-tails are pretty tolerant of us and what we do, as long as they can shift. But baby season, babies can't shift. So there's certain things they're not allowed to do to protect babies. Say it again. Uh-huh.
And, you said you didn't know what your bats were doing.
Right, so Motus tags are incredible, absolutely incredible, and there are bat species that are being Motus tagged. Hoary bats are one of them. They are having a really hard time tagging Mexican free-tailed bats because they live in these big colonies inside little crevices where they rub all over each other and they tend to knock the tags off, and they're expensive, of course. The other is Mexican free-tailed bats are yoga experts, so they just reach with their little hind leg and pick it off. Yeah, so they'll last maybe for a couple, 2-3 days, and then they're gone. I think at some point we'll get better at it. But right now we just don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, many of our bats are active anytime it's over about 45 degrees, 45 to 50. There's going to be bats out hunting. So again, anything we can do to support the insect population. And some of those are things that maybe you already do because you want to support the birds. So like leaving leaf litter. So, you know, the insect population grows. It's also healthier for our soil, right? The other is red bats. They use leaf litter to overwinter. So if you're raking up leaves in the winter, you may well rake up a red bat. Yeah. So things of that sort. Stay out of caves. Yeah.
What's the rarest bat in the world?
What is the rarest bat in the world? There are bats going extinct in several countries. Asia in particular has some pretty significant habitat loss. Brazil has some significant habitat loss. So I don't think I could say which is the most rare, but certainly if you look at what are red listed, what are the species that are crashing, there's several bats on those lists. Yes.
What can we do about that fungus?
What can we do about the white nose syndrome fungus? We can, again, if bats, the better body shape they are when they go into winter, the more likely they are to survive. So one of the sets of work that's being done by Bat Conservation International is to work to support the insect populations near the hibernaculums or the hibernation caves. So supporting organizations that are doing that kind of work, you know. As an individual, our best bet is just leave the bats alone. Yeah, there's good stuff going on, but we just don't have a cure. Yeah. And, you know, we don't know what's going to happen here in California. We just don't know. Yes.
Have you ever heard of hammerhead worms?
Hammerhead worms, no. I've heard of hammerhead bats and hammerhead sharks.
What is hammerhead bats?
I discovered one in my yard and I've seen several since, and when I looked them up, they're very toxic and said not to handle them. And they're toxic to birds too.
Are they non-native?
Um,
That's, I'm guessing. I'm wondering if they came from somewhere else where they,
Since I do a lot of gardening, they might have come in on a plant.
well, they may not have even come in because of you. They could have come from some, you know, I mean, things end up in our environment.
But
Yeah.
it was black worm that I looked at and I thought, wait a minute, why does he have a square head?
Yeah, weird. Yeah. Did you?
Anyway, it was, and I think some of the worms in my yard are changing.
Interesting. Could be.
Since I'm not using an insecticide, there are lots of changes going on.
Yeah, you know, we can control what happens in our own yard. Unfortunately, we can't control what happens in our neighbor's yard. People often say, well, do you go out and catch the wild moths for your bats? Like, I don't know what my neighbors are doing. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what my neighbors are doing. And so I don't. Because I know that things move up the food chain. And these guys are already compromised. So they eat a lot of mealworms and other insects I can buy. Any on Zoom?
I've been asking, and I'm not sure if it's getting through to everyone, but if you're on Zoom and have a question, you can unmute yourself and then talk. Also, before any more time elapses, we would like to donate more money to NorCal Bats than we're able to provide through our honorarium. So if you'd like to leave a donation tonight or send us a donation later, we'd really appreciate it. And that will help Corky and her work to preserve bats. Should we give it to her? You can give it to me and then I'll give it to her. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a deep pocket.
Take your tax.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful.
Hey, let's give a nice hand to Corky. That was really sensational. I learned more about bats tonight than I've ever learned. So that was really, really awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Zoom audience, for coming tonight. Don't forget, our next meeting is the second Thursday in November, which happens to be November 14th. And we'll be back at the Napa Valley Lutheran Church on the 14th. Please check out our website. It's a great site and has all of our calendar events. If you can send in a donation, if you're in the Zoom audience, please do that as well. Thanks very much, folks, and thank you for coming.